We good to go?
All right, Cynthia, we are good to go.
I love seeing your beautiful face traveling across the country in your RV, just really getting back to basics.
We are, yeah, yeah.
Where
This
are
is
you?
this is glamping. I'm still in Connecticut, but we are headed places north. So this has
I've
been the
heard of this
great,
place.
we are doing the Great American Weed Tour. Members, when you get your newsletter, I'm going to talk a little bit in the newsletter and the message from the president about kind of now I am officially a cannabis tourist, right?
I think we should have you in a little cartoon car, like driving up the cartoon United States and then stopping at all of these different markets and putting a little video about your experience there. I mean, this could be a big thing. You could do
I,
this.
you know what? I'm your guinea pig. Put me to it, Captain. Put me in. I would love to do it. Wouldn't that be
I
fun?
would watch you on TV, go to different markets in the RV, trying different cannabis strains, and it'd be
It would be,
great
it'd be a hoot. That's true.
as long as
Well,
you streamed on Netflix.
okay. Right. On Netflix. Hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, Michigan was not the market that I expected it to be.
Womp,
I,
womp, womp.
yeah, it was cheap. When they told me like $58 for this bag full of weed, I was like, well, okay, do I tip?
A
Um,
saving.
yeah,
Yes.
right. But the first weed they had me smell was moldy. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I want that one. And I really am a terpene rich kind of girl.
You are a terp girl, yes, for sure.
I am. I totally am. Uh, my next stop is actually uh Maine, where
Ooh,
there is a company that is not a sponsor of Florida Cannabis Action Network.
yet.
That puts together a blueberry cobbler and a blueberry cloud. And so shout out to Jungle Boys, who is also not a sponsor. But Jungle Boys does an orange apricot that I absolutely flipping love.
Yeah.
Uh, I absolutely love it. It has a mandarin orange kind of flavor, and it hits me in all the right spots. It is what I want. So I walk into a True Leave in Connecticut with the terpene profile, and I'm like, "Can I have something that looks like this?"
Do
And
you have
they're like,
any of this here? And they're like, lady, you gotta
"This
go.
one has mercy."
She's a
I
narc.
go,
Who comes into the dispensary with paperwork? I'd like to buy some of this if you have any of these terpenes.
well, at this point now, that was the point, right? To have this kind of sophisticated market so that people who cared
Yeah.
about what they were putting into their body could find strains that worked for them, whatever they are treating. And so now as a cannabis tourist, I'm like, well, I have found some of what I want. And I complain a lot about the Florida market. We're going to spend some more time complaining about
Because
the Florida market today.
we love to do that. And people love to hear us complain about the stuff. If it was all sunshine and roses, I don't think they would tune in if we were like everything is just fine. Like they need to know why we're complaining, why they should be a little excited, right? It's
I,
relevant.
you're right, and that is relevant. When people used to talk about the horrors of California and the horrors of fill in the blank cannabis program, I would say, well, what do you think about Maine? And they would all say the exact same thing. I didn't know Maine had a medical marijuana program at the time or an adult use program after they passed adult use. And I would say, well, of course not, because you never hear, program works news at 11,
Right. And
right? That's
correct me if
not.
I'm wrong. And I'm vaguely remembering this, and I could be wrong, but Maine doesn't have testing regulations, right?
So I don't know. That's a great question, and I
I
haven't
know
looked
there's
into it
something weird about Maine, and it
about
could
Maine.
be something weird good, but
So yeah,
I'm gonna look it up because I'm so
okay.
curious because you're going there next, and I'm concerned
And I
almost.
dra and I really liked it. And I wouldn't be surprised if their testing doesn't look like a state like Florida's. And the reason I say that is because their program started with caregivers and patients cultivating for themselves, and kind of the collective model, right?
Right.
So when you were doing the collective model and you had 12 people gardening and they were going to work together to garden, and the product that they got was what they were going to take home with them, they knew what
Right.
kind of soil they were buying and they knew what kind of pesticides.
100% accurate. So the
No
medical
testing.
cannabis program does not have mandatory testing. So just like you said, they know what they're putting into their own medicine. They're not sharing it on with others. They're not selling it. Mandatory required testing for adult use products, but they have consumer inquiry testing or voluntary testing if you are, bragging rights and curious about your stuff. But yeah, you are 100% right. Medical did not require it, which you would think would be reckless, but it's because they're growing stuff for the people that they love and care about. So they're not going to
Exactly.
put poison.
And they were not looking to mass produce. And
Exactly.
and so I think that's kind of, the Florida market meets a Walmart buyer,
Hmm.
right? We
Well, yeah,
have
I mean,
mass amounts of it. There's how many millions of people in Florida? Or largest medical market in the state.
true.
What did I see? 1 million people using it as medicine, and I think I saw 3 million using it through the hemp program. I don't know where I saw this. It seemed like maybe on one of the
I
Florida
feel like
connections.
all the facts you spit out are going to be, gospel. So I'm like, yeah, of course, 3 million, 1 million. Jodi knows her stuff, so why would I ever question you? But
Oh, well,
do
I
you
I
think?
try to be quiet if I don't know.
Oh, me, I just make it up. I mean, you got to have
Let's play.
content, right? Accurate,
Excellent.
good, bad, content. My question to you is, with you saying that there's so many patients in Florida, the largest medical market, do you think that with Maine not requiring medical testing because it's small batch for just individual use, that when people scale to accommodate larger quantities of people and patients and opportunities at money, that's when they mess up cannabis?
Absolutely.
Me too. I guess I'm
Absolutely.
preaching to the choir and
We just,
we can
yeah,
move
we
on.
just, we just can't, well, we can't find any controversy on that. Arnold Deal, and shout out to Arnold Deal, sat on our board, was our secretary, helped with Floridians for Freedom, as vice chair of our political action committee. Arnold paints, right? He had been a commercial painter. And he said, oddly enough, Jodi, when you mix all of the colors together,
Uh-huh.
you might think that you would get, black, but really what you get is gray. It's just very gray. And I think we have a lot of gray cannabis these days.
That's a good
And
point.
so and now to get to scale, whatever that might look like, if you don't provide enough licenses, if depending on what your market looks like, now you're now you're cutting corners. You're changing your profitability. So maybe it's not accommodating large markets. Maybe it's allowing it to be a for-profit business.
Yeah.
Where would we be if we had if we did like Canada and had Canadian stores? I knew a guy who had a winery in Canada that wanted more for his wine than the stores in Canada were willing to pay it for it. So he was forced to take the price that they offered him or not be in the wine
Yeah, I
business.
was about to say, or stop making expensive ass wine. I mean, I don't think Canada's really known for their wine. I maple syrup, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I know they're up there. They do a lot of great things. They're definitely like way forward on cannabis before we even got to the
Yeah.
game.
Way.
As far as the ability for a patient to cultivate for themselves, which is a great segue to what we're going to talk about today. Um, what do you think some of the proponents of this activity, home grow, what do you think they think we're doing with home grow? What is their worst case scenario, their nightmare, their biggest fear? And I ask
It's always
because
the kids, right? Isn't it
gotta
always the kids
always
coming into
gotta
my
protect the
garden?
kids.
It's
right?
always the kids. It's their little kid breaking into my private property,
And smoking flower that's not ready to be smoked yet and getting high.
stealing, violating my sovereignty, trespassing on my property. Yeah, but their
Stealing.
crime is my problem. Yeah, and then the
Okay.
second one is the smell. Uh,
I think
they don't want to
they're
smell my
afraid we're
feet.
going to sell it. I think they're
Absolutely,
afraid that if
version.
they let us have one or two plants or two or three plants, that we are going to have such a big, productive. They don't know how much a plant will yield, on average, as far as weight goes after drying and curing and trimming and everything. I think that the proponent, people that don't like home grow, think that we are yielding a lot of weight. We are going to then push a lot of weight into the black market, and sell it, um, because they don't know how much one or two plants can produce and if they're going to be successful or affected by any of the variables in Florida. I really think their biggest fear isn't so much naughty little kids coming into your yard, because we have a constitutional carry. Those kids, it's not safe. Okay.
Stealing
So
my
I feel
shit.
like
Stay out of my yard, kid.
I'm like, I feel like we might be on the border of like, hey, which one do I choose? I think they really think wherever we grow, which is there's, but maybe it's the kids. I want to know because I have a comparison for our listeners today, per se, of the not so successful Amendment 3 that everyone voted on. I'm saying not so successful because even though it didn't have a super majority, I feel like everybody was on board. There was a lot of support until people were misinformed and then became very uh, aggressively against. And that's why it didn't pass. But it was almost at the 11th hour. So,
Well,
Smart and Safe
$10
Florida.
million, $10 million in taxpayer money. Let's not forget the DeSantis. There were a lot of reasons why it didn't pass. But
And where
Act
that
Two,
money came from is also very interesting now that we get into that only after it had happened. Because had we known
uh,
back then, we may have had more questions and may have had more favor. But
we
uh,
would have.
in the 2024, on the 2024 ballot, we all had an opportunity to vote for Amendment 3. Obviously, Smart and Safe Florida was the one that had sponsored it. Truly was a very large contributor financially to it. And Daddy DeSantis was very vocal about his distaste for it, and also had money shuffled towards the anti Amendment 3 campaign that now we know was acquired through means that are not very great or legal or ethical. So he used someone else's money to do his bidding, and it I think it was a success, but it wasn't a super majority 60%. And so it didn't pass. And we all kind of licked our wounds for a little bit. I think we didn't talk for like 2 weeks. I know, because I was letting you mourn and then I was mourning in my own way. And you had all that swag still left over.
Oh,
Like,
we still have it. I hope that the ballot initiative that we're talking about gets to the ballot. I know you're
and
going to
it's number
talk about
three.
the pros and cons, and it needs to be number three because if not, we have an entire Casa three, full of yes on Casa three because that's
I'm just
cannabis. Yeah, I don't
it
know
needs
what we
to
do
be number three so that we can do yes on three stuff again and just
again.
re-push it out. Let's not waste anything and have to send it off. There's kids somewhere else in the world that's wearing, the other not winner of the Super Bowl shirts and that they made to have on deck. But the the biggest issues that people were having with the language, we want to talk about if the new ballot initiative that is going to be pushed by Smart and Safe, is it satisfying all of the issues that were brought to light when everybody was holding their press conferences and saying, here's all the problems with the bill? And if there's too many issues that were addressed, and now this ballot may be overstuffed with requests, that it might not make it through Supreme Court review. So, right now, Smart and Safe Florida submitted they only needed 220,000, but they submitted 377,000 signatures, which means that is more than they needed to get Supreme Court review of their language. This process, if anyone remembers, I guess I would say last year, but it was technically over a year ago because they were in Supreme Court review forever. That was like it survived challenges from Attorney General, now U.S. Senator Ashley Moody, right? See, everyone's come so far. It feels like a lifetime ago. And it was in Supreme Court review for a while, but they actually did make it out. They survived the challenges from the governor's office, but also the one subject rule that is mandatory in this activity, this constitutional amendment. So, what does that mean? One subject rule, to put it in very layman's terms, you don't sit on Santa's lap and ask him for a laundry list. You get one request for Christmas, okay? And so if you go to see Santa, there's a big opportunity. He's a busy guy and he's got a lot of people asking him for stuff. So one present. If you say, I want one present and another present, everything's denied. You're a pain in the ass and you're taking up his very valuable Santa time. So one thing can only be changed at a time in these citizen ran ballot initiatives. That one thing was going to be the ability for someone over the age of 21 to utilize cannabis as they see fit. The end. Now, there's other stuff in there about how you're going to acquire it and blah, 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 but it didn't have anything about where you could smoke it or protections for kids. DeSantis brought up the fact that it was going to make the rich richer with this big company that's bankrolling it. There was also issues about, it was going to smell up the state. So that was a public
Be able to smoke anywhere. It was a monopoly. You wouldn't be allowed. It was a I'm thinking of the big fat guy sitting there smoking a crack while the guy's digging to put in his garden. Oh no, you won't be able to bring this will only make the rich richer. Emergency room visits, diversion to children. Those were kind of the biggies, right?
There was also we didn't have home grow listed because we couldn't ask Santa for more than one gift, remember? So home grow wasn't on there at all.
I think it's about sovereignty. I think it's about separate sets of rights and exempting adults from using cannabis while setting up a regulatory scheme was seen by the Supreme Court in Smart and Safe to be one subject.
Yes.
We're going to regulate cannabis for adults 21 and older.
The end.
That's the end. That's all that we're going to do. We're going to regulate. And this regulation means where they're going to get it, who's going to be able. And they said it's going to be for people 21 and older. It's going to be the places that are already exempt. It's going to be more businesses as the legislature sees fit. Right. And everything else had to be left up to the legislature. And that 100%. Was clean.
It was very structured and meticulously so because they had conversations with the Supreme Court about how to draft language. Their attorneys had conversations with other people. How we need to draft this language to make sure Supreme Court review is successful? And it was successful. They made it through.
And they did. And they had examples. They had the failed Amendment 2.
Yes.
That had gone through Supreme Court review twice. And then they had the MILF. Oh my Lord.
Oh my gosh.
They had a regulate
Make it Florida. Legal Florida. I love that one. MILF. Make it legal Florida.
Make it legal Florida. So they'd seen what lost, what a loser looked like, and they'd seen what a winner looked like. So they're going to be in Supreme Court review again. That could happen any second now.
No, they're in it.
Right. But the Supreme Court has not set a date yet for their oral arguments. And that's the trigger date. So when they go in for oral arguments, Smart and Safe's lawyers are going to have to argue why this is single subject, why this isn't confusing to the voters, why this isn't a conflict with federal law. That's new. They didn't have to do that 2 years ago.
I was going to bring that up about some of the challenges from this one. But my biggest concern and my question for you, Jodi, is the new language seems to make all of the arguments from DeSantis and the sheriff's department, all these different groups that were very vocal at the end, it seems to appease every single issue. Issues about home grow, issues about like not marketing to
Smoking.
children, issues about smoking in public and being offensive to the people that are tourism community. So if they have addressed every single thing, okay, um, do you think they may have done too much to appease? Almost as if it was intentionally, let's appease everything so everyone can see this doesn't work if you ask for too many things.
So I'm of two minds. It to me it looks like kitchen sink stuff. Like you said, appeasing everybody.
Mhm.
I cannot see how, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't play one on TV, but I do have more than 30 years of experience watching this unfold from the front line of the war on drugs here in Florida. I have more than a little bit of experience watching these Supreme Court cases as they've moved forward. I do not see how the Supreme Court is going to allow this as single subject. I think
Yeah,
that's one of its first barriers. But I'm
100%.
but I'm thinking, I'm Jodi James. How can I possibly be right? Because surely the attorneys, how can I possibly be right?
They wouldn't let this language go through if they had any questions, right?
Or if they doubt it. And I
Right.
do remember the Supreme, well, I don't remember which justice it was, but when and when Smart and Safe went to the Supreme Court last time, it was absolutely fascinating. Um,
I bet they would say different as far as a descriptor, but from your
I
point of view,
know.
fascinating.
No, I don't. It was unique. The Chamber of Commerce sent somebody to argue because the Chamber of Commerce was opposed to Smart and Safe because it didn't allow home grow. I heard it for myself. You can go back and look at the
I
transcripts.
trust you. I trust
One
you. You're Tony
one
James.
of it just blew my mind. The Chamber of Commerce, who has not been our ally,
Leon County?
said it did not. No, this was something that was put through. Now it's in cooperation with the governor's office, right? Because it's the governor's oh, I'm afraid I'm
And
okay.
there you are.
Okay,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
back.
I thought we were
It
going to
was
live like this forever.
sorry,
Um,
I hope not.
you were
It,
explaining the
it
Chamber of Commerce. It was a national Chamber of Commerce, or was it
no,
Leon County?
it was the state chamber of commerce in collaboration with the governor's office. Because remember, this is Ashley Moody who is challenging
Yes,
it.
Attorney
So
General
the
at the time.
Ashley Moody puts out their brief, and the Florida Chamber of Commerce does an amicus, a friend of the court brief. They get added on as an opponent to this. And click your pen if I'm still around.
Jodi,
We are.
is this
Here we are.
Connecticut speaking? Is this just
It's got to be. It's got to
we got to
be.
move the RV to
Got
better
it. We're
to
gonna try. So, the Chamber
what's
of
an amicus?
Commerce, friend of the court, gave a friend of the court brief, saying that Smart and Safe, the first one, was not for businesses because everybody wouldn't be able to, and it didn't allow home grow, and that's why were challenging it. Now, I was trying to say, uh, Justice Kennedy, Canady, is kind of one of the big shots there. And he was talking about, or one of them was talking about, that they were kind of tired of hearing these legalization initiatives.
Ooh.
And the legislature should have done something about it.
I don't
So
think
that's
they
why
get
I'm
to
like,
say that they're tired of something when that's their
well,
job, right?
well, no, it's the legislature's job to do these
Oh,
sorts of
but if the
things.
legislature doesn't do what the voters want, how are we supposed to get anything done? We don't have
And
referendums. We don't
and
have other options.
and that's why Florida Cannabis Action Network has spent so much time trying to protect the right of the citizens to petition the government for redress. It's the First Amendment.
Not
Uh,
shameless plug, and I love it.
oh, well, no, it is.
You're
I mean,
right, though.
it.
All
We
you guys, your main focus in Tallahassee this year was making sure the ability for Florida Cannabis Action Network to speak for those who aren't being spoken for in Tallahassee by legislatures. And there's not a single legislator out there that is taking on cannabis as their platform. It's usually just an ancillary support thing and like, hey, I'm friendly, but not really. Everyone who takes it on seems to be like not very prohibition focused. So
right.
you have been spending a lot of attention on this for years and people don't know how much is being taken away from them.
Well, and the biggest problem that cannabis has is that partisan primary voters are not making this their top issue.
No.
And people who are making this their top issue aren't focusing on being partisan primary voters.
Ooh,
So
that's
it's
hard.
it's double. Uh, John Tobiah, who was a representative, I know you know John Tobiah. He
I
was
do. I do. Yep.
so I met with him in his office in what is it, West Melbourne or Melbourne
Yeah.
Beach a decade ago, and he said, Jodi, and I ran against him in 2010, so he knew me. He said, I polled my primary voters, and they don't care about this issue. And if
Right.
they don't care about this issue, I don't care about this issue
And that's
because
the truth.
it's the truth,
It's a hard truth. It's a brash truth,
but the truth
but it's
nonetheless.
the truth. And I will, although Commissioner Tobias at the time loved to bring things up when I was advocating for cannabis, it always seemed like he was bringing up a topic that night that was causing a lot of angst. And it
Right.
was almost like just happened to be there on that night. But he was always very honest and listened and answered questions when I had them. But that's a really harsh truth because how do you get reelected if you don't focus on what your constituents give a crap about?
You really don't. And that kind of is a great segue to what's happening in Texas versus what's happening in Florida in the hemp
Good
space.
old this.
Just this week, Governor Greg Abbott vetoed a big hemp package that he had been working on for that the lieutenant governor had been
There
working
you
on.
are.
Yep.
You
And
keep
I
freezing.
just kept talking because we're recording this. Governor Greg Abbott vetoed a hemp package that would have been the prohibition, maybe even the end of hemp sales in the state of Texas. It had been a pet project of the lieutenant governor. And so when Governor Abbott vetoed it, it was kind of a big blow up. We are partners with an organization called Cannabis Media, and wow, no shameless plug for Starlink. No love for, no
Okay, you
love,
just came
no
back.
love for Starlink. No love for Starlink.
I mean,
Um,
they're sending up rockets outside my door every single day, and you can't get any service. Like, this is crazy.
Not
How are
in
this is
Connecticut.
important stuff, too. So,
It really is. So we used Cannabis Media to look at the number of retailers that are selling hemp products and are licensed for hemp products in Texas. 70,000
damn.
licensed retailers selling hemp products and 745 licensed manufacturers in Texas creating hemp products.
So, do you think he vetoed this prohibition as to not piss off a lot of potential?
Voters.
Huh. Interesting.
A
So,
lot of
with Texas
voters.
being very, how do I say this appropriately?
Southern.
Ass backwards and upside down with certain things. Yeah, that seems like the appropriate way. So obviously Texas is not super canna friendly. They they're like, woo, Texas, pew pew. I think that's their slogan. It's just two fake guns with pew pew coming out. But I like Texas. I like that they are slightly reserved and very cautious with their implementation because they see us and every other market around them, making mistakes. They can learn from that. Just because they're slower doesn't mean that they are not just as good. But this is a big move for a governor to veto the lieutenant governor's proposed
Yeah,
prohibition of hemp products. But when
right.
you put numbers like that out, how could you
It is.
not veto it? It would
Well,
be career suicide.
and when you compare that to Florida and Operation Safe Summer, which is coming out of our
Ooh.
executive branch, right?
I wonder
In
who
the
came up with that name. Offer Operation Safe Summer, sponsored by Wilton Simpson and the Florida Department of Agriculture FDAC's enforcement team. Dun dun dun.
11 11,000 products off of shelves in stores in 20 counties in the first week.
We talked
So
about this last week. We told everybody June 16th was the day in which all of the things were going to be implemented with enforcement. So in 1 week, what happened? In
uh,
7 days.
in well, five, because they don't work weekends, right? This
That's
is
a
the
really good
government.
point.
This is the government. This
Wow,
is
they're working hard.
inspectors. This is FDACS, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services,
And
sending their inspectors and cooperating with law enforcement, don't forget,
always.
into establishments in 20 counties and taking more than 11,000 products off the shelf in 1 week.
So these were products that were not compliant with the rules implemented and officially enforced on the 16th for hemp products that
Correct.
were drafted 2 years ago.
So these would be products that they did not have the mandatory child resistant packaging, right?
Okay.
Per international standards. So let's live with that. Their labeling didn't include a scannable barcode linking to the product's lab report. Okay.
That's actually relevant.
Not
That's a good one.
opposed.
Nope.
We like lab testing. However, there is a prohibition of the packaging that mimics candy or
Mhm.
uses images of animals, cartoons, or humans. Now, wait a minute. I can't
An
have a
image of a
picture of my
human.
grandma. Right. I can't
You
have a
put an alien
picture.
on there?
I don't know. Is that a cartoon?
I guess it depends on if you believe or don't believe. Yeah, it's all relative.
And whether it's in pixels or it's in pencil,
Yeah.
exactly, it's all relative. And I really don't like arbitrary laws. There is
No.
also a new restriction on advertising. They are banning certain product colors. So if your color is red and it's not made by the right red, it's off the shelf.
What does
The
red do that blue doesn't do? I know it excites rage and hunger, but
Well, I wish it was because of the needing a prohibition on red dye, but they're also banned beet juice and all kinds of things like that. So
okay,
that might
I get what
make
you
you
said.
red. So it's doesn't seem to be like the red 39 or a specific red. I do like the new labeling. I do like that. And then there's some water activity in your cannabis that's going to be on your tests. So Waiting on you
They
to tell waiting on you to tell me
I
I'm
just
not
kept
frozen
talking
up.
about OSS, the Operation Safe
Excellent.
Summer, and how it's a
Excellent.
crackdown on bad actors. When actually I feel like that's not exactly true. It's a crackdown on people that didn't. How many counties total in the state of Florida?
Uh 67.
Okay, so they went to 20 counties, which is impressive, and they took 11,000 hemp products that were not compliant. That means a lot of freaking products were compliant. I mean, 11,000 is a lot for a week's work, 5 days in 20 counties, but like that could be one entire shop with like 200 SKUs,
Right.
or something like that. It could be an area of town that where they just don't care about the regulations. It could be, but these were like hemp smoke shops, retailers, head shops, things like that. They weren't like, do you think they were gas stations?
Well, that remains to be seen. Right now, according to Cannabis Media, we have over 11,000 people who are retail licensed as
Wow.
hemp retail stores in the state of Florida. Not 70,000, licenses. Now they may do something different with licensing. I have been told now that if you have more than 12 linear feet of hemp, that you have to
Hmm.
have a hemp food permit. So
That's
it
been
may
like that
be,
since 2019. Yeah, or 2018, technically.
so it may be that we have a whole lot more people selling hemp products. They're just not selling enough that they require that license. So, hemp,
True.
it, so how the licensing goes. It'll be interesting to see. We do not want products that look like Twix on the shelf.
No. Or
Well, I'm
Nerds
glad.
Rope.
I'm like, okay, Cynthia, at one point I'm like, okay, click your pen if I'm not frozen up. And you didn't click your pen. I was sad.
I barely got what you just said. It was something about Cynthia, and then I'm sad, is what I heard.
I said if I'm not frozen up, click your pen.
Oh,
Um,
I dropped it
and
on
then
the ground a second ago, and I was
gotcha.
trying to play it off.
Well, you didn't click your pen, so it meant that I did not do my thing. So Florida Cannabis Action Network is following Operation Safe Summer. We'll probably be back to talk to you guys about that some more. We are doing our part to know what is happening on the path to legalization. Uh, Certainly, Smart and Safe is not a place where we can put all of our eggs. Some of you that are following Florida Cannabis Action Network may know that we are doing a survey right now to inform a white paper that we're hoping to use during late August and September to get lawmakers ready to talk about cannabis. We're going to be inviting folks to Tallahassee starting in October. The first committee week is actually October 6th. So we don't even have 6 months before we're back in the legislature. We have 5 months before we're back in the legislature.
It's a
So
really fast turnaround time. It feels like we were
it is
just
a
there.
fast, well, it is a fast turnaround time, and it's particularly fast during even years. Now,
Gubernatorial years and not, yeah, that transition, it seems very short. It is short.
it is short. During in 2026, when we leave Tallahassee in March, we won't have to be back for a solid 9 months.
Yeah,
When you leave in an odd year like this, you have to be back in 6 months. And of course, this session took 105 days to end.
it
So
did. It just kept
we're
going and nothing was getting done.
so also on the local level, uh, before we wrap up, if you are associated with the League of Cities, I'm sorry, if you're associated with the League of Counties, the Florida League of Counties, you may have recently been party to presentation about cannabis, and the League of Counties is really being told to just stand in the way of any efforts to legalize, stand in the way of any effort to liberalize, stand in the way of any effort to make accommodations for employment. This is
Why?
the message. Federally illegal Schedule One drug.
Who are
So
giving the directives? Who's the
lawyers doing seminars for the League of Counties. So these are not things that are going to help the cause, this kinder, gentler war on drugs that is just happening in the shadows while people are continuing to get products. These are the kind of things that are going to set us back and not move us forward. So if you hear these kinds of things, if you know it's happening, if you see a seminar is happening, go and be the voice of reason. Ask the tough questions, make somebody answer why, because at the end of the day, if we are all not advocating in the same direction for a more liberalized use of safe quality products at an affordable price, then they are going to continue to divide us and separate us. And more of us will have to become cannabis tourists to get the products that we want, need.
and if you go and participate, just like Jodi said, advocating on our behalf as an industry to stop this activity, we will give you some Amendment 3 stuff, swag that is in because we have so much. So if you can prove that you participated in support of what Jodi was just saying, you got amendment swag bag coming your way. Mark my words. We will do that for you because Florida Cannabis Action Network gives a crap about you giving a crap about us. So,
They really
and
do.
League of Counties really needs to fall in line. This is news to me. I thought I knew all our topics. I did not know this. So I
It's
wish
news.
I don't know, even know who is part of the League of Counties.
Yes. Well,
They have
let's
a
keep.
uniform? Are they
No,
business cards?
every county pays money to participate in this League of Counties. So
They
your tax dollars
fine.
empower the Brevard County to pay a fee to be
Uh-huh.
part of the League of Counties. The League of Counties pay staff people, they pay lobbyists, they pay for expensive hotels, they pay for seminars and webinars and training
Where
and
are these hosted?
insurance. Um, Quarterly all over the state. I think this was a webinar that
I
if you were on
remember
the league could get in, go into the
I
League
remember
of
the League of
Counties.
Counties being very vocal when we were trying to pass um,
Mhm.
Article 10, Section 29 of the Constitution, the original, the successful 2016 medical marijuana. Right before or right after the vote, they were putting a lot of propaganda out there. And that was the only other time I remember hearing about the League of Counties. They seem irrelevant until they're nonsense and a nuisance, right?
Well, you didn't know about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen until they made a movie.
Or there's a lot of leagues going on right now that are under
Really
the
are.
lowbrow, kind of like
They
under
really are.
wraps. But you know what? Some are doing good, some are doing evil. I'm going to stay up to date on this one because I really hope Brevard County isn't actively participating in this prohibition nonsense. Because
Well,
I'll
and
go.
that's the thing to say to your county commissioners and your city council. Do not participate in prohibition nonsense. Uh, we were very successful. I was convinced that before my youngest, and I know it's late hour, and if you're with us still, thank you very much. Please be sure to share this and to like it and check back with us. Next Friday is 4th of July, but I am committed to talking about cannabis liberty with Cynthia Brewer.
I'll be here.
I'll be here. Well, here will not be here because I will not be in
You're going to
Connecticut.
be a maniac. You're going to be
I,
up in Maine smoking that blueberry. I'm going to be right here on 4th of July because my dogs hate fireworks. And so this is what I do every year. But I'm excited to be able to host with you another Elevated Intel. And like Jodi said, please like and share to all of the people that like the same stuff we do because it's always helpful. And we would love to get more people as members of Florida Cannabis Action Network or just more people to tune in to get this short and sweet information of the relevant stuff happening around us. So thank you to anyone who's watching Jodi get frozen every 20 seconds and holding it down and like sticking with us. And Maine, I think will have better Starlink service.
I'm going for it.
Fingers.
We will find it. We will find a place with open skies. That is my goal for next week.
I
All
just hope you
right.
find that blueberry. All
There,
in.
absolutely. And if only it were hemp, it would be legal to share it with you. And
Of course it would. Because hemp. We
yes,
will see
we
you next week.
see you next week. Bye, Cynthia.